Sangha program. We have started a new theme for this program. The new theme is Nagapatni's prayers to Lord Shri Krishna. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 16, from the verse 33 to 53. These are very beautiful prayers. And today we have a very wonderful devotee who will be presenting these prayers and her realization. So today we have Shikha Mataji presenting. Hare Krishna, Shikha Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Over to you.
Thank you, Mataji. We're going to start with some prayers. Om Agyana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashchate Deshtarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advait Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktinda Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yatkripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dina Karanam Narayanam namaskrityam naranchaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udire. Hare Krishna devotees, thank you so much for the opportunity to learn about the Nagapatni prayers. And I'm learning with you all, so please forgive me for any mistakes which I do. Like Mataji was saying, these are beautiful prayers and they teach us so much about the present time. And we are going to learn about the pastime of Nagapatni prayers. And while we are calling it Nagapatni prayers, some of you may have heard this story as Krishna Dahan Leela or Krishna or Kaliya Daman Leela also. So I'm going to start with a little description about what this pastime is all about. And then we are going to talk about some of the learnings which we have from these and some personal realizations as well. So the story actually is about Kaliya serpent, and why this Kaliya serpent is so important that we are reading about this Kaliya serpent. So he was so venomous that the lake, he was residing in a lake in river Yamuna, and he was so venomous and he had put so much poison in the lake that the water was heated and it was boiling. And even the droplets which are evaporated contain poison. So when the winds are blowing, they will be carrying that poison, and that poison was actually killing all the trees, the animals, the insects. So everything surrounding the lake was also getting killed. And even if the birds were flying, the birds would get killed. And it was so poisonous that even the demigods couldn't go over the lake. So that was the condition of this lake in river Yamuna. And then this Kaliya serpent was very powerful. Physically, if we think about it, he had 101 prominent hoods and total 1,000 hooded Kaliya. So you can imagine the size of this Kaliya. And then from mystical powers, he had mystical powers, which is called Jalastamba. And what this power was, that he had the power to solidify the water. And this lake was very deep. So what Kaliya was able to do was, he was able to, based on his mystical power, create a big palace for him, and he used to live there. So we all know that river Yamuna is very close to Lord Krishna's heart. And what Lord Krishna wanted to do was, he wanted to get rid of Kaliya and actually protect the river Yamuna. So what he did was, he planned a pastime. So one day, the cowherd boys actually, and the cows and calves went with Krishna. He made sure that Balram doesn't join him that day. And then as they were playing on the banks of the lake, this Kaliya lake, they got very thirsty and they wanted to drink water. And as the cowherd boys and cows drank the water, they passed out. And Krishna knew exactly what is happening. They got passed out because they drank the poisonous water of the lake. So we know that any time when the devotees are offended, Krishna cannot take it. So he decided that he is going to punish Kaliya. And what we also see in this pastime is that Krishna gave a loving glance to the cowherd boys and cows. And because of his divine loving glance, they were back to life. So then, in order to punish Kaliya, what Krishna did was, through a Kadamba tree, he entered the lake. And Krishna that time was between 6 and 10, so he was still a little boy. But Krishna's weight, we can see in this pastime, very interesting pastime, the weight and the heaviness of Krishna was so much that because of Krishna entering, the lake flooded. And they said that the flooding was so much, it was 100 bow lengths. And Krishna, though the water was so poisonous, like we saw in this pastime with cowherd boys, Krishna was playing like an elephant in the lake. And then what he was also doing was he was using his hands and arms just to move water. And the force which Krishna had and the agility which he has is so much that it was creating tumultuous sound in the lake. And that actually agitated Kaliya. And then he came up to just see what's happening. And we hear a lot about Krishna's beauty and how all the Brajvasis are enamored by Krishna's beauty. But here we see in this pastime that the venomous Kaliya, even he was enchanted by Krishna's beauty, though he didn't recognize at that point of time that he is Supreme Personality of Godhead. But as he was seeing Kaliya, he was just enamored by his beauty, his soft body, his silken garments, and Krishna looked very attractive to him. But he wanted to punish Krishna. So he grabbed Krishna, actually bit him on his chest and coiled Krishna all around, as we can see in this picture. So this happened, and as soon as this happened, the cowherd boys and calves, they got very scared and they passed out again, because their heart and soul they had given to Krishna, and the cows were crying as well. And we see so much love, like they always talk about how the pastimes of Rajvasis are so unique, and we don't even experience some of that in Vaikuntha, what we see in Vrindavan. And we can see from what was happening. I mean, we could see that physically on the earth, there were tremors. In the sky, what we saw was that there were meteors which were falling. And people in Brajvasis felt they were trembling and their eyes were quivering. And all these signs are ill omen. And anytime something happens, because they have given their consciousness to Krishna, they felt that something is wrong with Krishna. Is Krishna safe? And they were even more troubled when they got to know that Krishna went alone and Balram is not with him. So they wanted to trace Krishna. And it is so beautiful. Prabhupada has explained it so beautifully, like what really Krishna means, not only to the cowherd boys, but even to the animals and wind of Vrindavan. And they say that Krishna was so dear to everybody that when he was walking, nobody would walk over his footsteps. They would preserve Krishna's footsteps as if they are jewels of earth. That's what they say. And even neither the cows, nor the calves, nor any insects or reptiles would walk over them. They would preserve them as ornaments. So they use that to track where Krishna is. And that is the devotion which people in Braj have. And then when they reached there, they saw that Krishna is coiled. Krishna was playing that pastime, and he continued in that position, completely helpless. And then gopis started crying. They were remembering the pastimes which they had with Krishna. And Nanda Maharaj and the cowherd men, they did not think, when Krishna is in trouble, they see it, they don't think whether they know swimming or not. They just wanted to jump into the water, the poisonous water, to save Krishna. and the calves, they were crying. I think everybody was in agony that time, in fear to how to save Krishna. And Balram was trying to just calm everybody, but he was also thinking that I am Sheshnaga, and Krishna doesn't do any of these pastimes with me. And this little Kalia who has no significance, look how Krishna is playing with Kalia. So seeing the Vrajvasis in such a state, Krishna actually then tried to relieve himself. So what he did was he started expanding himself. And as he was expanding himself, it was causing so much pain to Kalia that he couldn't keep his coiled grip. And then Krishna quickly swizzled away like naughty Krishna, and he started swirling in the lake. And Kalia with his 1,000 hoods was swirling back, and he was trying to catch Krishna so that he can bite him with his venomous poison. And he kept releasing poison with his tongues. He did everything, but Krishna's agility, we all know. And then round and round, Kalia got very tired. And then Krishna actually jumped over his shoulders and went on his hood. And then he started dancing on the hoods of Kalia. And what Krishna was really trying to do was, he was trying to bow down the hoods of Kalia, just like we surrender and we pay obeisances. So that was actually Krishna trying to make Kalia surrender. And Kalia was, when one hood would go down, Kalia would bring other hood and try to do that. But Krishna was so heavy on Kalia that it was unbearable for him. It was painful for him. He started vomiting poison. He started vomiting blood, and he was in pain. And though you can imagine, like the hoods of Kalia, huge, and 6-year-old Krishna, it's slippery, it's moving, but Krishna was dancing so beautifully that actually became a pastime on its own. And all the Gandharvas came, all the Apsaras came, the demigods came in, and they brought their drums and mridangas and instruments. They started playing, they started singing. Demigods started offering flowers, and everybody was enjoying this pastime. And then Kalia couldn't bear it anymore. And Kalia was always afraid of Garuda. And he thought in his mind that this boy must be Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he's 1,000 times more powerful than Garuda. So in his mind, he surrendered to Krishna. And how he surrendered to Krishna was because he had his wives, which are called Nagapatnis. They were pure devotees, and they used to tell Kalia about Krishna, but Kalia would never listen. But in times of trouble, he remembered those words of his Nagapatni, and that's how he surrendered in his mind. And Nagapatnis could actually realize what is happening to their husband, and that he's surrendering. And they felt so good about their fortune that their husband is now a Vaishnava. And that's when they started offering prayers, which we are going to talk in detail in the next slide. And then after Nagapatni offered their prayers, Kali also offered his beautiful prayers. And this is what the association does. He did not know the right choice of words, so he was paraphrasing what he had heard from his wives. And he said beautiful prayers to Lord Krishna. And he said that I'm surrendering to you. It is your desire whether you punish me or you forgive me. And then he also talked about how he is born as a snake and as a serpent. And by nature, their quality is that they are enraged, they are angry, they are envious. And what Kalia talked is so applicable to all of us, that he mentioned in his prayers that on his own, they cannot get rid of miserable condition and the condition of illusion, and they need to surrender. He needs to surrender to Lord Krishna. And what really touched me in these prayers also is that Lord Krishna fulfills everybody's desire. So he fulfilled Nagapatni's desire that they wanted their husband to improve. So he did that. But Kalia also, as he was offering prayers, he was thinking that Lord Krishna's vehicle is Garuda and they are brothers. And he had this desire that maybe someday I can also be vehicle to Lord Krishna. And Lord Krishna sensed it. So when Kansa invited Lord Krishna to come to Mathura, and that was the time when the war had to happen between Kansa and Krishna. Actually, Krishna called Kalia, and Kalia was used as the vehicle to go to Mathura. So that's the pastime. And this pastime, Kalia Dehan Leela, actually teaches us a lot of things. Importance of Yamuna River, like how dear Yamuna River is. And they say that Yamuna is so pure. And if we offer prayers to River Yamuna, if we take holy bath, we are actually getting rid of our sins. We see that from the time Krishna was born and how Vasudeva was taking, and they had to cross Yamuna River, and Vasudeva asked actually Yamuna River to make way for Krishna and him, and Yamuna River did that. And at that night, she was very tumultuous. But when Lord Krishna touched Yamuna River with the feet, she calmed down. And the Vrindavan pastimes are so beautiful, but most of those pastimes are actually happening on banks of Yamuna, where Krishna spent a lot of time with cowherd boys, the gopis, and Ras Leela. Yamuna River also, under the name of Kalindi, is wife of Lord Krishna. Another learning here is Lord Krishna's glance is so merciful. And that's why we are encouraged to go to the temple, because just by the glance, the cowherd boys and cows who had passed out were able to revive. And Krishna's glance is very merciful. And that's why we have the Rath Yatras, where God wants to actually shower their mercy on us. Also, in the Nagapatni prayers, they talk about what did our husband do? He must have done some very pious acts in his previous life, that he got causeless mercy of Lord Krishna. I mean, think about it. Krishna's lotus feet were on his hoods. So he must have done something really, really pious in his previous lives. But real reason for causeless mercy of Krishna was because Kalia's wife was pure devotee. So just being in the presence of devotees helps us. So from learning for us also is, as much as we can, we should spend time with devotees. And if they are senior devotees, they give us advice and direction and they inspire us. If we are with our peer devotees, they help us to get rid of our anarthas, the egos which we carry. And then the younger neophyte devotees, we teach them. And by teaching them, we learn, and they learn through the process. And we learned about the unconditional love of Brajvasis. And the question comes in, and it is there in this chapter, that when Brajvasis love Krishna so much, why was Krishna giving them so much pain? Because they were in so much agony. And what they talk about is the spiritual love and ecstasy, and through this there is exchange of rasas basically, and seeing, and what this is doing in spiritual realm, it's so hard for us to comprehend, is that the emotion gets more intensified, and it makes it more beautiful. So that's the ecstasy of love. I haven't experienced it. I wish someday I can experience this one. And Kalia, and he says that in his prayers as well, like we have anarthas, right? We have envy, we have our egos, we think too high of ourselves, we have anger, we are so venomous, right? So Kalia actually is representing us. Through these pastimes, we can realize that how strong-hooded we are and how we need Krishna's mercy as well, just like Kalia was saying, to improve. And beautiful thing about, and this is how Nagapatni's prayers start, that they said that what you did is so right. And even while in this whole episode, Kalia suffered so much, but if we think about it, that suffering which Krishna was giving was actually mercy of Krishna, because was helping Kalia get rid of all the contamination, all the anarthas, the envies which were coming out in the form of poison from his, and he was contamination free. And that's when you can surrender to the Lord and follow the instructions of your Guru as well. Surrender to the Lord is key. And that's what like Kalia was talking about, that this is my nature. I'm born as a serpent, and it's very hard for us to get rid of these. And the surrender to Krishna is so important. And he first surrendered in his mind. And as he was doing that, later on, he said that verbally as well, that by birth, we are envious, we are ignorant, we constantly get angry, and this becomes our state. And we can never become free from illusion, we can never become free from sufferings. And only by surrendering to the Lord and obtaining their mercy can we remove the anarthas in our lives and can get rid of this material existence. And then I think a lesson for all of us, and we're going to talk a little bit more in our next slide, is how exalted the Nagapatnis are, the wives of Kalia. And I was thinking about them a lot, and hopefully this slide helps. So we get so blinded by our attachments to our spouse, to our friends, to our kids, that we are not able to see anything wrong in them. But Nagapatnis were so clear that their husband is serpent and he is very sinful. And they say that, Krishna, what you did was right. So they were not blinded. They were very realistic. And they had complete surrender and faith in Krishna. So at the beginning, when Krishna was dancing on the hoods, the poison was coming out and all. And at that time, Kalia hadn't surrendered. And they thought that our husband is so sinful. And if Krishna wants, he may kill Kalia. And they accepted that as well. And they even accepted to become widow. And they were such exalted devotees that they said that for the rest of our lives as widows, we are going to worship Lord Krishna. And how compassionate and understanding they were. So when Kalia surrendered to Krishna in their mind, in his own mind, they did not have conversation with he did not have conversation with Nagapatni. But Nagapatnis were so compassionate and they understood their husband so well just by seeing his face and his body movements, that they could make out that Kalia has surrendered to Krishna. And that time they felt so fortunate. And then they said to Krishna that he is our soul, and please give our soul back to us. Always showing the right path. Kalia, like we talked about, is so powerful, so huge, so sinful, but even then they did not deter from the path, and they continued their devotional service to Krishna all along, and always showing the right path, not only to themselves and their kids, but also to their husband, even if he was not paying attention or understanding it, but they kept putting the seeds of bhakti, and we see that they did fructify at some point of time. And these wives are so humble. At no point they said that Krishna, all this happened, or Kalia, this happened because, see, we were pure devotees and we saved you. In fact, they kept thinking our husband must have done something very pious in their previous lives, or this is mercy of Krishna. So nowhere they took the credit of saving Kalia. So very, very humble and meek. And in the Nagapatni prayers, they talk about the dust of Krishna's lotus feet. And they said that all we want is Krishna's lotus feet, and we are ready to give up any attachment. And they talked about it so beautifully here, that they want to give away all their attachments, all their hankerings for kingdom of heaven, for becoming the rulers of the world, taking the position of Brahma. They did not hanker for any of these things. They only hankered for being in the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. And the service attitude is so prominent in these prayers, where they are not complaining, they're saying that Krishna, you are all merciful. And what they're saying in these prayers is, Krishna, we are your maid servants, and we want to faithfully execute your orders. And by doing this, we will be automatically freed from all fear. So we see how truly they want to serve Krishna. And like I talked about, the great example of undeterred bhakti. So whether there was pain, there was sorrow, there was agony, any kind of difficulty, even when their husband was dying before them, they did not lose their faith on Krishna, did not blame him. And that is a great example of undeterred bhakti. So beautiful prayers, we learn so much. And I mean, Nagapatnis are exalted, but I feel that Kaliya is very exalted too, because we all can make mistakes. But if we can, even now, if we can remember and realize Krishna and surrender to Krishna and accept our mistakes, I think it's big thing. So exalted Nagapatnis and very exalted Kaliya as well. So that was our discussion for today. Hare Krishna, over to you, Veena Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. That was really beautiful class, and so beautifully you started out with presenting the pastime. So nicely you narrated. I especially liked how you described how poisonous the lake was, the river was, and everything around had become poisonous. That's how powerful and venomous Kaliya was. And so nicely you described the sequence. You literally brought the whole pastime in front of our eyes. That was very beautiful. And nicely you summarized what are the learnings of this Kaliya Daman in the sequence. And I think the key is that Lord's glance is so merciful. That's something I learned. I know there's a lot of beautiful points. You mentioned like how unconditional love the Brajavasis had, and Lord used to give them pain, but despite that, they had so much of love for him. And I think the key is here surrender to the Lord, both Nagapatnis and finally Kaliya by the association. And I like how you said association is so important. Kaliya, by the association of his wives, he also got the mercy. And of course, Lord's feet on his hood. So how much more can he be, right? The mercy. And finally, the last slide, you beautifully explained how Nagapatnis have such exalted position and how compassionate and understanding they are. And the point that you highlighted that how, they, even though they knew their husband is in so much misery, and they were still praying to Lord and surrendering, and they were telling, okay, you're so lucky that Lord is on your hood, and such causeless mercy. So much bhakti they had, right? And so much of compassion and humble. So beautifully you have summarized the prayers, Mataji. That was really very good. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. With that, devotees, thank you all very much for joining the BhagavatSanga program today. We will see you all next week. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji, Shikha Mataji. It was a wonderful presentation, complete presentation from pastime to the realizations and the qualities of Nagapatnis. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. I'm learning from you and Prabhu.